Hello, my friends. Welcome to my webinar on downsizing for a move. I am Kimberlee Foster. I'm owner of Chucket Organizing and Relocation Services. I'm based in Sonoma County, and I help people move in and out of the county, as well as cross-county, cross-country, and local moves. I am a relocation manager, a professional organizer, and a transition coach. So if you are thinking of moving, even if you're not sure of where you're going or any other details, I want to encourage you to start now. There are lots of things that you can do right now to begin this process and make it a lot easier for yourself. Way too many people wait until they have some sort of medical emergency, for instance. And that makes it 1,000 times harder to make decisions, to make sound decisions about where to go, what to do, how to downsize, and what to downsize. So starting now will also help you build what I call the downsizing muscle. And what that means is you take your time building that muscle, and I'm going to explain how to do that in this webinar. So given that, let's move on to the next slide, which is about today's agenda. I'm going to talk about where and how to begin your downsizing process and your move planning process. Then I'm going to talk about disbursement options. A lot of people who call me say, I have no idea where to start, and I have no idea how to get rid of things. Who is going to take them? I will cover that today. And lastly, I want to talk to you a little bit about what to expect from movers when working with movers, packing, unpacking, and settling into your new home. The goal of this webinar is to give you hope and the sense of possibility that it can be done. And I guarantee you, since I've been doing this since 2011, that it can be done and it will be done. I have never had a failed move. Okay, so the first place I feel is important to start is to have a plan, have an action plan. Have a checklist. It doesn't need to be fancy. It can be on a piece of paper. It can be in a spreadsheet on your computer, but you don't want to have it in your head. I don't recommend that because there are way too many moving parts for you to keep track of. On your plan, what I recommend you include are things like what needs to be done and when. So it's important to put a date on there so you have something to work toward. It can change, and it probably will. Your dates may change, but that's okay as long as you have something to work toward. You also want to include what you're going to need from others. So for instance, you might need an appointment with a landscaper. If you have a pool, somebody who cleans the pool, your home appraisal if you're working with a realtor. So you want to know who is involved in this process with you. You can include their name and phone number so you have an easy go-to reference information when you need that. So basically what this is a timeline to keep you on track, and it does relieve stress because you've got all your thoughts sorted. And you know, if you do this in a spreadsheet, which is what I do for my clients, it's just so easy for me to move things around or insert a new line and delete things, change things, because things do change during this process. So expect that to happen. The next step in this process is to select items that you absolutely need to keep. What do you need to have? And what you want to keep in mind when you're making these selections is what is the new space you're going into? And I'm going to talk about floor plans too in just a minute. But you want to keep in mind what's the new floor plan, what's the new space, what's the lighting, and your new lifestyle. So especially if you're moving into a senior living community, you're going to have a totally different lifestyle than you would living in a single family home. Okay, so for instance, you're going to have a dining room. So you're really not going to need a lot of cookware. You're also not going to have home maintenance. And so you don't need to bring all those supplies that you've been using all these years to maintain your property. You also want to think about what are the most useful items? What can I use in my new lifestyle? What is most useful in this new space? Also, really important is functionality. Is it functional? Is it multifunctional, especially? So you want to choose items that, like furniture items, that have storage in them, as opposed to something that doesn't. And I'm talking about maybe an end table or a side table, that because when you move into a smaller place, you have less space. You have less storage, sometimes a lot less storage. So the furniture you choose should have some storage options. You also want to choose items that are deeply meaningful to you and lovable. Don't bring things you hate. Don't bring things that don't bring you joy or make you feel happy or good. So this is a really good opportunity for you to purge the items that no longer work for you, that you don't love or you don't like or you don't use. Once you know what you absolutely need and want, it does become easier to sort and purge. Which brings me to this part of sorting and purging. So as this graphic shows, you want to free up unwanted things, unused, old, outdated, broken, and spares. A lot of people have duplicate things that they've needed throughout their lives that makes sense for maintenance of a home. So as that previous slide mentioned, big, broken, I add obsolete. How many people out there have a lot of electronic waste that they haven't used and they've shoved away into spare rooms or closets? This is when you get rid of them. Okay, so I actually like to approach my jobs in two ways, and they can be interchanged as well. So the first approach I like to take is to go through a home and look for these items, things that are large and broken or large or broken, things that are obsolete, and get rid of those first. That can clear up a lot of space and really give you the feeling that you are moving forward and that you can feel accomplished. The other method or approach is to choose easy areas or easy categories. For instance, an easy area could be, as this first slide picture shows, a medicine cabinet. So you can purge all your unwanted or expired medications. How about a pantry, a kitchen pantry? Maybe you have expired foods in there that you can toss, or maybe there are foods that you no longer enjoy eating that you can donate to the food bank. The linen closet, here's a linen closet over here on the right. Sometimes those are really easy to go through and purge. You can donate towels, sheets to the shelter or to animal shelters. And by shelter, I mean like a human shelter. So let's step into some sorting tips. I love to use containers. So before I start a job with a client, I always ask them to get containers, or do you want me to get some? They're very helpful for containing. So when you're sorting things, it's really helpful to put, especially paper. Let's use paper as an example. you put all the paper around your house into one container, and then you can sort through it later as time permits. Another great tool to have is a timer. I love timers because they help manage your energy and keep you on track. So you can start your sorting by just setting the timer for like 15 minutes. See how you feel after the first 15 minutes. And if you feel like you still have energy, set it for another 15 minutes or a half hour. But really, when you start feeling tired or frustrated, that is a sign for you to stop and take a break, do something else, go back to it later. Now, adjusting your mindset. You might wonder, what's that? Well, it's really, I find that a lot of my clients look at what they're losing, which is totally understandable, and it can be a grieving process, no doubt about it. However, I encourage you to, instead of thinking about what you're losing, think about what you're gaining. As I mentioned earlier, you're gaining a community, you're gaining safety, you're gaining a dining room. Most of my female clients are so happy they don't have to cook anymore. So think of that, use that as like a guiding light for yourself if you start getting really frustrated and thinking maybe this isn't the right thing to do. Think about what you are gaining. Ask yourself, if this disappeared tomorrow, would I even replace it? I think those of us in Sonoma County have had a lot of practice with this, given the history of fires the last few years and many people losing their homes and everything they ever owned. So we're a little bit more practiced with this, but it's still difficult when you're still in your home and you're having to think about what to get rid of. Okay, so if you ask yourself this question and the answer is, nah, I wouldn't replace it, then maybe it's time to pass it on to somebody else who will love it and use it. Get rid of what's not yours. How many of you out there are acting as a storage unit for your kids or a relative or maybe a former neighbor? So I know I did this to my parents. I left a lot of things, not that they cared, but toward the end of their lives, it mattered that we got things out. But you know, think about it. You're managing somebody else's stuff. Why? This is the sunset of your life. It is time for you. And it's also a time to include only those things that you really love and treasure. So you might consider setting a deadline for the owners of these items to come and pick them up by a specific date. And you can tell them, and if you're not here by that date, and yes, I realize this could be a little bit of tough love if you're able to do it, that you will donate it. And you can say with a firm smile on your face, what is your favorite charity? And I will donate it for you. One thing for sure is that guilt is not a good reason to hold on to things. Okay, again, this is your time of life. Guilt is an energy sucker. And that includes gifts. Gifts that you don't use, love, or want. Maybe it's with a gift from somebody that you don't even like. So you definitely want to get rid of those things. But only you know what you're willing to hang on to. And only you know if you have the space and the time and the energy to continue managing other people's things. Another important piece of a downsize and move is creating a floor plan. And this is actually a science that involves math, which I hate, which is why I use my handy tape measure and a software program online that actually does the work for me once I get the measurements of my client's furniture and the measurements of every available space in their new home. So one thing you need to know, in case you forget, when you are going into a senior community to do a tour and you look into a sample unit, I want you to think this: my eyes are not appropriate measuring devices, even if the space you're looking at is staged, because everybody's furniture and stuff looks different than what you're seeing in a staged unit. And it also looks a lot larger when it's empty than it feels and looks and is when you start moving furniture into it. So you want to measure everything. You want to measure all the usable space, especially. You want to make sure you know where the heat vents are, where the AC unit is, so you don't plan to block that. Okay, just as an example of that, I moved somebody from the East Coast here, and someone else, a colleague of mine on the East Coast, did the floor plan using the assistance of staff in the senior community. Big mistake, because they were not experienced in what to look for. So in my naivety, I said, okay, no problem. And I never went to look at it ahead of time. I trusted my colleague that she had covered all the bases. Big mistake. When all the furniture arrived and I was managing the move-in and the placement of furniture items according to my colleague's floor plan, I discovered that she had placed a grandfather clock on a wall exactly where there was a fuse box. That is not where you want to put something that is so difficult to move as a grandfather clock or anything else. Maybe a light picture, yes, but not a grandfather clock. So I had to spend lots of time and energy in reorganizing the entire place to accommodate that grandfather clock. So that's why being detail oriented is really important in my work. So I'm going to rub this in because it is one of the most important pieces of my work, is doing a floor plan. And I'm going to put my cursor right here where I'd like to draw your attention to this living room. This was my client's floor plan. She was so proud of herself for doing this. She was a very smart, intelligent woman, but she also didn't understand that things have math associated with them. And so she gave me this thinking that, all these things were going to fit in there. And I want you to note right here, she included their little baby grand piano. And I want you to notice how these chairs are little tiny squares, as well as the couch, okay? And then I want your eye to go over here and look at what the reality is. This is what actually fit after I took the measurements of everything they wanted to bring and put it onto an official floor plan that I created using official numbers, measurements, okay? And even this, you'll see, even these chairs were too much. We eventually eliminated those for safety and also for accessibility, because as you see, walking into this front door, walking through here, it would be very difficult, especially for anyone with a walker or who has a fall risk, to walk through here into and squeeze into the onto the patio through these doors. It was virtually impossible. And if the door opens from the left side, forget it, without moving furniture, which I don't consider to be very safe. And safety is the #1 priority when I'm working with my clients. So I would rather put things in storage, which is like my cardinal rule never to do, but I would rather do that than have them be in an unsafe environment. Okay, so I'm gonna hop off of that wagon, and I'm going to go over here to another one that a lot of people don't like. When I give my in-person seminars, I hear a lot of groans in the room when I say, yeah, stop buying, stop buying. You know, you bring stuff into your house, you have to manage it, unless it's something you're going to consume, like food or paper products, right? You want to, at this time, you want to start using up your current supplies, your food, your paper products, your toiletries. You want to start using those up. You don't want to bring new things in. And in case you can't see the caption of this cartoon, it says, and it's a man on his, presumably on his deathbed, and his wife holding his hand, and his final words on his deathbed are, "I should have bought more crap." And my subcaption is, "Said no one ever." Okay, so this is a time to cut up your Costco card. Okay, just kidding, but you want to put it away. Put it away. Shop somewhere else. When you're purchasing things, buy small things. But here's another thought, is if you're like sick of your furniture, or maybe it's time to have a new mattress, this is a great time to just get rid of those items that you really don't want anymore and buy new furniture. But here's the trick, is that you want to measure that furniture. You get the measurements from the store you're purchasing it from, and you make sure that it's going to fit in your floor plan. Okay. And number two importance is to have it delivered the day before your movers arrive. That way you don't have to worry about moving things around to accommodate your incoming furniture. It's already placed in your new home exactly where you want it according to your floor plan, and done deal. So you don't have to worry about it afterwards. So the bottom line here is, don't add more stuff to manage and to have to pay to move and pack. So the last part of this process is to have support. This is really important, to have emotional support and physical support. As a move manager, that's what I supply. But if you can find someone in your life who is non-judgmental, who is neutral and positive, ask them to help you out. Some people use family members, which oftentimes ends up being a disaster, so I don't recommend that. But above all, you want somebody who is not going to undermine your decisions, but also somebody who is going to help you think through logically, considering where you're moving, right? Your new space and your new lifestyle. So these are the things you want support with. So you don't want somebody saying, "Oh, you don't want to keep that ugly thing," or the other way around. Okay, so find somebody who can help you, and this will help help you progress sooner and quicker, and it also does relieve a lot of stress. Okay, we're moving into part 2 of disbursement options. So ways to get rid of your stuff. Okay, selling. A lot of my clients want to sell things, and unfortunately, I always have to deliver the sad news that most items do not hold the value they think it does in today's secondhand market, and especially now with so many people downsizing and moving, mostly out of California. There is a glut, and I witnessed that recently when I went to donate to a charity, and their parking lot was filled with donations, like piles of carts, huge carts with donations. So I want you to have a realistic perspective about this option of getting rid of things. It's not impossible. It's just that a lot of times we hold an emotional value for which there typically is no price. There's no price anyone can give us for some beloved heirloom. I recently went through this with my family home after my mom passed in February, and I was in charge of emptying out her home and selling it. And it was a very emotionally painful time for me. And I really got how difficult it is. And the way I was able to do it was, of course, not only being 3,000 miles away and it not making sense for me to move everything that was dear to her and to our family out here, but how I was able to move through it for myself, other than that, was to say, a lot of these things were deeply meaningful to my mother. They meant something to her, not so much to me. I didn't hold the same emotional value, except that they were familiar items throughout my entire life up till now. But these were heirlooms that she remembered her grandmother by or her parents by. I never knew them. So that's how I got through it. But anyway, so the bottom line here is to adjust your expectations. And if you think you do have items, if you're really convinced, no, I'm serious, man, this really has some monetary value, then find a personal property appraiser or an eBay consultant and get the proper feedback. Get professional advice on what to do with it. And you don't want to hire a personal property appraiser who also purchases, because they will never, I shouldn't say never, but rarely are they going to be fair about the price, because they have an invested interest in this. Okay. You can research prices online. You can go to Craigslist and look for similar items and see what people are selling them for in your area. You can go to auction websites, collector sites, Amazon, and eBay. Okay, those are really, really good sources for getting a proper perspective on what items are worth. Now, remember, with Amazon, items are brand new there, so you have to take that into account. So what I realized when I went through this personally and professionally working with clients is, what I see is the value. Typically what the value is the memory. It's the emotional attachment that the item holds for us. It's not the actual item. So maybe that might be helpful for you as well. Here are some other selling options. I did an estate sale of my family home back east. They can be very successful as long as you have enough items that the estate sale planner feels that she can make money on, he or she can make money on, and they can make money for you. So they will come out and do an assessment and let you know. Actually, I don't know what they're doing during COVID, but probably still the same, because I still see estate sale signs around town. Consignment shops is another option. I'm not so crazy about those, frankly, because they have limited space. So they're very selective on what they will take. And oftentimes you have to be the one to transport it there, which requires hiring a hauler, unless you can do it yourself or have a friend with a truck and muscles. There's also an online auction company called Max Sold. Although I have never used them, I've read and heard really positive things about them. So I definitely think that that's a great option. They have local vendors who will go in and actually pack things up for you and get it out the door. And then, of course, I mentioned eBay. So there's eBay where you can sell things if you're up for that, or find someone else to do it for you. Facebook Marketplace is what I use a lot, and Next Door Neighbor. Those are both online apps and very successful. You don't get what you think you're going to get for them, for your items, but you can always start high and lower the price over time. Other options, of course, are to donate and get a tax-deductible receipt. You can have a garage sale. That's a lot of fun. It's also a lot of work and it takes a lot of energy. I used to do a lot of them and I would do them with neighbors and we'd have a grand old time and have pizza and beer afterwards. But as I've gotten older, I'm like, no way am I going to do yard sales anymore. So that's why I use Facebook Marketplace to get rid of things. Estate liquidators, you have to pay them to come in and pack everything up and take it away. It's another option. And then there are smartphone apps for those who are technologically knowledgeable. There's probably a lot more than these two I have on the screen. Close 5 I did use years ago and it was successful. I've never used Let Go, but someone who attended one of my seminars said that she did and she loved it. And there's probably a ton more out there now. So part 3, this is about what to expect. So this is about what to expect from movers, from packers, unpacking, and settling into your home. Let's start with hiring movers. Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to get an estimate in advance, of course. And this person will come to your home, I think. I know right now a lot of them are doing virtual tours, so you need to be technologically savvy and have a cell phone or an iPad or something and do a walkthrough of your home, and then they will give you a printed quote. Now, a thing about the quote is you want to make sure and ask them to put the clause in there, if it's not already, not to exceed, okay? Most professional moving companies will give you a not to exceed quote. And of course, they build a cushion in there for any variables that are unknown at the time of the estimate. Another thing about the time of the estimate, please be accurate and thorough about the items to move. Movers do not like it at all when they get to your door on moving day and you say, oh, I forgot, I've got this 500 square foot garage or storage shed or whatever in the backyard, way back there that we need to have moved to. You don't want to pull that on the movers at the 11th hour. So make sure you tell them, if the estimator doesn't ask, make sure you tell them if you have any outbuildings that need to have things moved out of them. Pack your own valuables. Okay, so I always recommend that you have a go bag, and I'm going to talk about that. I think that's in the next slide. But pack up your own valuables. Of course, smaller ones. If they're not small, then you have them do it. But I highly recommend that if there's something like jewelry or coins or whatever, just take it with you. And at the end of the move, give them a tip, especially if they've done a great job. Of course, if they haven't, you don't. A lot of the movers I work with will say, well, we don't expect it, but you know, it's a really nice thing to do, especially if it's a hot day and they do special things for you. Give them a tip. I usually give a $20 or $25 cash tip to each person on the moving team. Packing. Oh, packing is a science, believe it or not. Next to floor planning, it is a high science. So you want to use small boxes. There are so many choices that you have out there, but you want to think about when the box is filled, especially books, you don't want it so heavy that you can't pick it up and stack it. So I like to use book boxes or small. They're actually called small. It's written on them at U-Haul or Home Depot, but they're generally around 14 by 14 inches. If you have larger things like table lamps with delicate lampshades, those are really good to pack into a medium box. But keep it on the small side, as small as you can, especially for heavier items. I always like to let the movers pack breakables because they have the better insurance for covering things that might break in the process, but they also pack it so well that they minimize their risk. Use professional packing paper. You wouldn't believe the things I have seen clients pack their precious treasures with. I mean, you know, plastic bags, no, those don't work. And again, it goes back to the science of packing. And if you're not sure, go onto YouTube and search for how to pack. And you'd be surprised at how important it is to use professional packing paper and a lot of it. So here's one pro tip I have for you. Go to U-Haul and walk around and just look at what all the different options are that they provide for you for packing to protect your precious items. One more thing about this I just thought of, bubble wrap. A lot of people ask me about bubble wrap. And, you know, sometimes I use bubble wrap. It depends on the item. If the item is just too large for the paper, I'll use bubble wrap or their padded paper. They have brown padded paper, usually for pictures. But anyway, that's my feeling about bubble wrap. I prefer paper. It's faster. It works just as well. And you can fit a little bit more in the box. So move day. When they arrive, when the movers arrive at your door, you want to do a walkthrough. Usually they will say, let's do a walkthrough. But if they don't, insist upon doing a walkthrough so that they know, they're reminded exactly what it is you want moved or you don't want moved. So the items you don't want moved, you can either tag it if it's too heavy to move into one specific area of your home, or you can put them all together in a certain section of your home with a note on the wall that says, do not move. You want to have a day bag that you take with you during the entire day that you're out of your home and that the movers are doing their jobs. So you might want to have a change of clothes or, you know, obviously valuables, medications, snacks that you enjoy, some water, and of course, cash, your checkbook, that kind of is part of your valuables. And I also suggest, I actually require, in most circumstances, I require my clients to go out and do something enjoyable for the day. Go spend time with family. Drive out to the coast and have a nice meal. Excuse me, gotta wet my whistle. You want the movers to have the space and time to do what they do, okay? And it's safer. It's often safer for my clients too, in case something starts toppling. Not that it ever does, but again, I'm all about safety. So I'd prefer my clients to go out for the day and have fun so we can get stuff done on time, efficiently, and safely. Unpacking. I want you to take a good look at this picture right here. And I want you to see all the papers and the boxes everywhere. Unpacking is a blast. And it's really chaotic. So I always, excuse me, I encourage my clients to leave unpacking for the professionals because we put things, we get all the paper into boxes or bags and get it out of there. Because the sooner it's done, the sooner you can feel settled and start acclimating to your new environment. I have had a couple clients in the past who have insisted on doing their unpacking. And I would run into them weeks, months, even months later, many months later. And I'll ask, how are things going? I'm still unpacking. And, you know, maybe during COVID, it's not such a bad thing, but I do think it's a lot safer to have it done that same day that everything is moved in, or at least the next 2 days. But if you are going to do it yourself, make sure you don't pile your paper like that, because that stuff is really slippery. And if you slip and fall on that and have a face plant, you may not enjoy you may not enjoy living there. So put the packing paper away into large bags or large boxes. We often use they're called large or wardrobe boxes to stuff the paper into. So last but not least, this is a time where you really want to take good care of yourself. Yes, you can do it. I have a client right now who is doing it all, but she's got a lot of energy too, and she's physically capable and mentally capable of doing this. But I stress on her to take really good care of herself, to eat well, to drink filtered water, to drink a lot of water, take breaks. If you feel tired, least bit tired, take a break, go for a walk. Even if it's just a walk around the perimeter of your home or down the street a block or two and come back. It's really important to give yourself a mental and physical break from this. Also rest and nap. And above all, make sure you pat yourself on the back for what you accomplish. I think every single one of the people I work with, at the end of the day, they'll look around and say to me, oh my God, look at how much else I have left to do. And I make them sit down and list their successes either verbally to me or write them down. So this is where your checklist at the beginning that we talked about at the beginning would be helpful, to be able to check off what you have accomplished so that you can go back at the end of the day and see what you have done. Okay, it's really important because we want you to be able to maintain your energy and your optimism for moving forward, literally and figuratively. So, and acknowledge that this is a big change in your life, mentally and physically. It can also be a time of grieving. So give yourself that opportunity to grieve about this loss. Last but not least, thank you. Thank you for attending this. I give a complimentary 30-minute phone or Zoom consultation. Here's my phone number, 560-1491. Give me a call or an email and let me know if you'd like to talk to me. I have a booking link on my website. And in that time, we talk about what your personal unique needs are and how I can help you accomplish that. Okay, so that's it for now. And I wish you the very, very best in your move. And please call me if you need any help. Take good care. Thank you.